For years, fans have been obsessed with one question: was it love, or was it something else entirely? When Yaman and Demet Özdemir first appeared together on screen, their chemistry was undeniable. Every glance, every touch, every smile seemed to carry something real, something that no script could create. But what if that something real was never meant to last? What if behind all the passion, there was a secret understanding, a hidden pact known only to them? It all began on the set of their iconic drama, the series that changed both of their lives. They were young, ambitious, and suddenly thrust into international fame. Fans across the world didn't just love their characters, they believed in them. They believed that what they saw on screen was a reflection of what was happening behind the scenes. For a while, it seemed true. Rumors of late-night rehearsals, private dinners, quiet weekends spent away from the cameras, everything pointed toward a romance that was too perfect to be fake. They smiled, they joked, they looked at each other like two people who had found something rare. But then, it all stopped. Suddenly, interviews became distant. Public appearances were cancelled. And then came that single statement from Can, so brief yet so powerful: sometimes, reality and fiction get too close. And when that happens, one of them breaks. The media exploded. What did he mean? Was it a confession of heartbreak? Or a warning that their entire story had been a performance? Demet, on the other hand, chose silence, and that silence became louder than any denial. She focused on her career, avoided interviews that mentioned his name, and built a new image: independent, graceful, unbothered. But those who knew her best said there was a sadness behind her eyes whenever his name came up. Then, years later, something unexpected happened. A new project brought Can and Demet back into the same orbit, not on screen, but in the same city, at the same time. She was attending an international film event in Rome, while he was filming his latest Italian production just a few streets away. For weeks, there had been no sign of interaction between them. Until one night, when an anonymous source claimed they were seen entering the same hotel, through separate doors, but within minutes of each other. Was it a coincidence? Or something planned? And if it was planned, what could it mean after all these years? A staff member later told a local magazine that the two had met in the hotel's private lounge, away from cameras, away from noise. They didn't look like enemies, the source said. But they didn't look like lovers either. It was something else, something complicated. No photos. No proof. No public confirmation. Just whispers, whispers that would soon grow into one of the most mysterious stories the entertainment world had ever seen. The rumors spread faster than anyone could control. By the next morning, news outlets from Istanbul to Milan were buzzing with headlines: Can and Demet, secret meeting in Rome? Hidden pact or private reconciliation? What are they really hiding? Everyone wanted answers, but neither of them said a single word. It was as if silence itself had become part of their unspoken agreement. Then came the theories. Some fans claimed that the two had rekindled their relationship in secret, away from the pressure of fame and judgment. Others believed it was nothing more than a professional understanding, perhaps even a contractual one, of mutual silence born from necessity. One entertainment journalist in Italy went even further, publishing an explosive article titled "The Pact of Silence." In it, he wrote, "They share something that's not visible to the public, not love, not rivalry, but something deeper. A bond forged in trust and broken promises." No one knew if it was true, but the words resonated. For the first time, fans began to ask a painful question. Was their love ever real, or was it always an arrangement, something planned, something agreed upon long ago? In Istanbul, Demet attended a fashion event days later. She looked stunning, confident, radiant, as always. But when a reporter shouted Can's name, the smile on her face froze for half a second. That one flicker of emotion was enough for the tabloids to go wild again. Meanwhile, Can posted a photo on his Instagram story, a view from his Rome apartment at sunset, with just one sentence written in Italian: "Non tutto è come sembra." Not everything is as it seems. The post vanished after 10 minutes. But by then, millions had already seen it. And suddenly, the story took on a new life. Fan theories exploded online. Some said it was a message for Demet. Others thought it was directed at the press, a way of saying, "You'll never know the truth." But a few sharp-eyed followers noticed something that no one else did. In the corner of the photo, there was a faint reflection of a woman's hand holding a cup of tea. The internet froze. Could it be her? Was Demet really there? The debate divided the fandom like never before. Over the next few days, Italian and Turkish media outlets tried to chase the truth. A hotel employee confirmed that both names were on the guest list, same night, different rooms. But one line in his testimony caught everyone's attention: they asked for no cameras. No press. Only privacy. Privacy for what? For love? For closure? Or for something that the public was never meant to see? No one knew. And maybe that was exactly how they wanted it. Because in a world built on exposure, their silence became the most powerful statement of all. As the days went by, the silence only made things louder. The more they refused to speak, the more the world wanted to know. What had really happened between Yaman and Demet Özdemir that night in Rome? Then, out of nowhere, an insider decided to talk. A well-known Turkish columnist published an article that shook both fanbases. According to her anonymous source, someone close to Demet's circle, the truth was more complicated than anyone could imagine. It wasn't about love or a new beginning, the source claimed. It was about something unfinished. Something they had agreed on years ago but never truly discussed again. The article called it the hidden pact. It suggested that during their years of overwhelming fame, when cameras followed their every move, the two stars had made a promise to each other: if one of them ever felt trapped by the chaos of fame, the other would be there, not as a lover, but as a refuge. A private bond, unspoken, but real. A promise built on mutual understanding, not passion. According to the source, that night in Rome was the first time they honored that promise. Demet had been going through a difficult period, a heavy schedule, emotional exhaustion, too many questions about her personal life. Ken had just wrapped up a demanding project and was avoiding public appearances. They were both tired of pretending. So, one of them reached out. A simple message. A meeting away from the noise, away from everything that wasn't real. They talked about life, the insider said. Not fame, not career, not the past. Just life, who they had become, and who they could no longer be. If true, it wasn't a scandal at all. It was something much rarer, a moment of truth in a world built on illusion. But of course, the press twisted it differently. An Italian gossip channel aired a sensational segment titled "The Pact of Fame." They claimed the meeting had been arranged by their agencies, that it was all part of a secret PR plan to reignite their names together before future projects. Ken ignored the rumors. Demet didn't respond either. But then something unexpected happened. She posted a short quote on her Instagram story, just white text on a black background: "They can invent anything they want. I know what was real." That sentence broke the internet. It wasn't a denial. It wasn't an admission. It was something in between, a quiet declaration that the truth belonged to her, and to him alone. A few hours later, Ken uploaded a photo from his Roman apartment balcony. Rain, lights, and one word in the caption: agreements. Coincidence? Maybe not. Because sometimes, the strongest agreements aren't written on paper, they're written in memory. And that night in Rome, what the world called a secret deal might have been nothing more, and nothing less, than two people keeping a promise only they could understand. Weeks passed, but the echo of that night in Rome still lingered everywhere, in headlines, in whispers, in glances that fans tried to decode. And yet, those who truly followed Yaman and Demet Özdemir knew one thing: silence was never their weakness. It was their language. While the media kept guessing, Ken kept moving forward. He finished his project in Italy, appeared in interviews, smiled when asked about his work, but whenever the conversation drifted toward her, his tone softened, his gaze lowered just slightly. One journalist noticed it and asked directly, "Can, everyone is still talking about your connection with Demet Özdemir. Is there something you'd like to clarify?" He took a breath, paused, then said calmly, "Some bonds aren't meant to be explained. They exist quietly, and that's enough." That single sentence made headlines around the world. It wasn't a confirmation, but it wasn't a denial either. It was something more powerful, the truth, wrapped in dignity. The same day, Demet appeared at a charity gala in Istanbul. She wore a white gown, elegant and serene, her presence commanding yet gentle. When a reporter asked about Can's words, she smiled faintly and replied, "I'm happy when people remember kindness." That's all. 2 sentences. 2 hearts speaking the same language, without ever needing to name it. Then, something unexpected happened. A fan account leaked an unseen clip, a few seconds of footage from that very night in Rome. Blurry, shaky, filmed from a distance, but enough to make the internet freeze. 2 silhouettes were visible near the hotel garden, one man, one woman. They weren't touching, but they stood close, talking under soft streetlight rain. You couldn't hear their words, but you could feel them. In that silence, the world saw what had been missing all along, not scandal, not strategy, but sincerity. The kind that doesn't need witnesses. The clip disappeared hours later, reportedly taken down by request. But it didn't matter anymore. The moment had already spoken for itself. Months passed. The noise began to fade, replaced by new stories, new rumors, new lives. Yet every time Can posted something from Italy, a sunset, a quiet street, a cup of espresso, the comments were always the same: "Do you still think of her? Was it love or a pact?" And every time, he never replied. Until one day, during an Italian talk show appearance, the host surprised him with the same old question: "Can, be honest, was it true love or just a secret deal?" Can smiled, that familiar, calm, guarded smile, and said, "You can't make a deal with feelings. They either exist, or they don't." We both knew what was real. The audience erupted in applause. Not because he confirmed anything, but because he said everything without saying a word. Back in Istanbul, Demet gave one final interview that seemed to close the chapter for good. When asked about the night in Rome, she replied softly, "Some people come into your life to remind you who you are. And even when they leave, that reminder stays." The interviewer didn't ask more. There was no need. Everyone watching felt it, the peace in her eyes, the acceptance in her smile. Weeks later, an Italian magazine ran a feature titled "The Hidden Pact of Love." The article ended with a single, haunting line: "Maybe it wasn't a pact to hide love, maybe it was a promise to protect it." And that's what the world chose to believe. Because sometimes, true love doesn't need to be shown or shouted. Sometimes, it only needs to be kept safe, even if that means keeping it hidden. Years later, fans still revisit those moments, the photos, the quotes, the interviews. They still debate what really happened. But those who look deeper understand, there was never a secret deal. There was never a script. There was only 2 people brave enough to be honest, and quiet enough to protect what mattered. The world may have called it a pact. But for Can and Demet, it was simply a chapter written in silence, one that will never truly fade. Because some loves aren't meant for the spotlight. They're meant to live forever in the spaces between truth and mystery, where only 2 hearts know the story, and the rest of the world can only guess.